All right, gentlemen, it's time for another show. So, you know what that means. It's time for pre calibrations. What's going on today?
Jerry, it is Custom Oral Appliance Day here at SleepTech Talk. We have
Custom oral appliance.
I know we have we've talked about oral appliances before, but today we have a significant player now in the custom oral appliance space. We've got the dynamic duo Andrew Vickery and Wesley Lonis with us to talk about their new business called Daybreak. They've only been around for maybe a year or so, but my goodness, they certainly have been able to capture a significant part of that custom oral appliance space and really do it in a way that's pretty unique through direct to consumer marketing.
You're hearing more about them day and day. So that's interesting.
Well, I think the question that's going to be interesting to understand is one, their journey, but what is it that makes them different than the others in this space? Because there's well-established manufacturers that have been doing this, but what is it that they do that's different? That's caused this growth? Because we see it over and over. Someone sees a need in the market, they're able to fill that unique need in a very special way, and we see an explosion like we've seen with Daybreak. So I'm looking forward to understanding that their journey and what was sort of their tipping point that has kind of pushed them forward and given them this kind of growth because it's quite exceptional.
Before we go to that part of the conversation, I'm just curious what your thoughts are. We've suddenly seen an uptick, let's call it that, of various oral appliance options for patients, which before you didn't see that. Why do you suppose that is?
Well, I think there's a few things. One is access to care, but the other is that the science around oral appliances has moved forward dramatically. We know that from a mean disease alleviation standpoint, there's parity between CPAP and oral appliances. So from just a purely effectiveness standpoint, we see that oral appliances are as effective as CPAP. So that's part of it is just this inertia that we're seeing across the spectrum that's finally getting us to this place, and doctors recognizing that it is an effective therapy, and a great alternative to CPAP rather than even going on CPAP. I think the challenge there is oftentimes the physician waits for, or the sleep person, the sleep professional waits for the patient to fail something, and then they move them to an oral appliance. By then, the patient's checked out and they're done. So I think we're just seeing a change in philosophy in medicine that's elevating this, and it's due to the efforts of a lot of people across the dental spectrum.
Emerson, I think a couple of things too that are sort of helping to expand that space is with all of the wearables and the data, the physiological data that's being collected now, on a day-to-day basis. You've got the ability to, and with these alternative solutions like a custom oral appliance, you've got the ability now to have some physiological data to show some of the efficacy of the device, on a more in-depth scale. I think that we certainly have talked about, oral medications for sleep apnea. I think that an oral appliance is a natural, sort of adjunct to a medication for patients in the future.
Yeah.
Before we continue, and I'm excited to go and check these folks out. But to your point, Robert, there are other options out there, and I think that's what's exciting for me is before there was, like you said, Emerson, there was only one thing available, and now to say that, hey, there is this other option, and it doesn't have to be surgery, it doesn't have to be a mask on your face. It's something in between. And I think to your point also that more and more physicians are looking at and referral sources are looking at it as a first line of treatment as opposed to do we really need to fail one in order to try the other.
Absolutely. And my guess is that a lot of patients are finding Daybreak, who have already been through some type of diagnostic testing and maybe have trialed CPAP and are just still at home, remaining untreated. And hey, lo and behold, there's a solution that I haven't looked into, and it's right here in my social media feed.
Well, with that, let's go to the show then.
Let's do it.
Now, a word from our sponsor, MedBridge Healthcare. MedBridge Healthcare is a leading provider of sleep lab management services and home sleep apnea testing. MedBridge partners with hospitals, healthcare systems, and medical academic institutions to offer comprehensive, fully integrated services for sleep disorders.
Lights out.
SleepTech Talk is brought to you by Fisher & Paykel. Fisher & Paykel Healthcare is a leader in CPAP mask design and innovation for over 20 years. Their unique technologies have benefited millions of OSA patients through their top CPAP masks. These advancements continue to further enhance patient experience and outcomes.
SleepTech Talk is sponsored by React Health. Within our LunaPAP device line, each offering is FDA approved, encompassing CPAP, APAP, bilevel, and bilevel ST models. Our thoughtfully selected array of PAP interfaces and accessories complement our LunaPAP device line while accommodating diverse patient requirements.
Welcome, everyone, once again to another episode of Sleep Tech Talk, the Sleep Podcast with your hosts and friends, Emerson, Kerr, Robert Miller, and me, Dr. Gerald, George Mannikarote. Folks, we have an exciting episode, as always. And before we jump into it, and I'm going to tell you, this is a really big episode because anyway, I'll leave it for just a little bit. But before we start in that, let's just want to say thank you all so much. We are way past 100 episodes at this point, and so many subscribers, so many followers. We can't thank you enough for that. We just want to say thank you over and over again for it, and continue to grow and allowing us to grow. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and most importantly, share. There's always a comments section. If you have any thoughts, any ideas, don't hesitate to shoot them over to us, and we will see and do our very best to get back to them and even give us podcast ideas. And with that being said, I also want to give a huge shout out to our sponsors. Be sure to check them out because without them, we can't grow. And we thank our sponsors so much for that. And so, Robert, what's going on today?
Hey, Jerry, I'm excited to introduce the dynamic leadership duo behind Daybreak Sleep. They're a game changer in the at-home sleep apnea solution space. Today, we're going to meet Andrew Vickery, who's the head of business development. He's a Cornell grad with a knack for forging powerful connections to propel Daybreak's vision. We also have Wesley Lonis, who's the founder of and serial entrepreneur whose leadership from roles like COO at Byte and also co-founder of Currency in shaping a future where everyone can sleep better. So today we're going to dive into the insights of sleep technology, health, and transforming restless nights into rejuvenating mornings.
All right. Well, Andrew and Wesley, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having us. We're excited to be here. Excited to talk with you three gentlemen and share a little bit about what we're doing.
All right. Well, if you could just start us off with, how did you get into the realm of sleep health and sleep medicine?
Yeah, good question. So, I think we all have people in our lives. I do that suffer from poor sleep and largely due to sleep apnea. I think most people know that they've got an issue and suspect it's sleep apnea. And after exiting the last company where we were straightening teeth at home, thought there was I thought about this business for a while. I just didn't have the time to look at it. Was able to spend some time looking into the category and realized that there was an enormous opportunity that 80-90% of people that suffer from sleep apnea are not treated today, and sort of looked through the treatments that were available and found the holes and thought there was an opportunity for us to step in and provide quality care that's clinically sound, customer centric, and make it easy and affordable. And so thus began the journey of Daybreak.
Awesome. Andrew, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, Wesley dragged me along for the ride. We used to work together at my last startup and his last startup, both coming from the dental side. And I don't have anything to add except I think the one thing that has really surprised me is the mission component to the work. I think coming into healthcare was one thing, but hearing the stories day in, day out of how this really changes patients' lives, being better friends, better fathers, better colleagues, has really driven me in my role.
Andrew, you spoke of mission there. As you think of sort of the bigger story and what the kind of the ultimate value proposition is of Daybreak, what does it look like in your mind? Because every day you're telling that story and you're speaking to physicians, you could be speaking to patients, caregivers of all kinds. Take us through what the real value proposition is of Daybreak.
Yeah, I'll touch on the high level stuff and would love, Wesley to field this one as well. For me, it's two numbers in the back of my head. How do you sleep test 250 million Americans, and how do you help the 90% of people who are left untreated, who have OSA? And those are really the driving force behind what we do, the scale that we're looking to tackle this problem on. 1 in 3 Americans suffer from a sleep disorder, and 1 in 5 have sleep apnea. It drives everything we do, including the humility with how we approach the industry, and the collaboration with which we come to it with.
Hey, do
Yeah,
one of you guys mind walking us through what the experience is like for a patient? Maybe start with the patient acquisition side, and then, what does it look like to become a Daybreak patient?
Yeah, so the original business model was a direct consumer model. So we use performance marketing, sort of traditional marketing, find individuals that are looking for help with their sleep. We send a sleep test to their home. We have a physician, they take that sleep test at home. I have a physician read the output of that sleep test, remote in an async manner. If they have sleep apnea, we are in contact with them, discuss the options that are available, run insurance. We have insurance across the country, which is an important component for this model. If they want to move forward, then we send an impression kit to their home, which we've done many of those in our experience over the years, and then get that impression kit back digitally, or scan that, create a digital representation, and then manufacture that device. We have before we manufacture, we have a dentist, which is a very important component to this. We have a dentist review the case, and in its entirety. So scan, photos, the health questionnaire, the dental questionnaire. There's a bunch of things a package we deliver to a dentist that's in that local state, and then manufacture the device, ship it to the home, and then titrate with that patient over a period of 4 to 12 weeks. And specifically, we have a daily and weekly interaction where we collect subjective and then objective data to titrate. And this is all overseen by a maxillofacial surgeon who's on the team. And on the other end, sort of the bookend to the maxillofacial surgeon is an ENT that's been in the space for a few decades. So he's our chief medical officer, and so those two gentlemen oversee the entirety of the clinical approach to this. And then once a person's titrated, we will refer them back to their physician for a follow-up care, and then certainly we're there with them ongoing, sort of forever, answering, helping in any way possible.
When you think of the journey you guys have had, Wesley, what were some of the unique surprises along the way for you guys? As you clearly been in the dental business, but moving into dental sleep is extremely different, very different market. What were some of the surprises along the way that in a positive way, that really had shaped what Daybreak is today?
Yeah, I think Andrew alluded to it earlier. The stories that we receive on a daily basis, the impact of treating sleep apnea. Again, to be clear, we are here to augment current methodologies and current systems that are treating. Dentists are doing a fantastic job treating with oral appliances. There are lots of organizations that supply CPAPs in a variety of different ways. They do a fantastic job. It's a great treatment modality. So we're here to augment and help just get more people treated effectively at the end of the day. But the stories that we hear, of the parents that haven't slept in the same bed for 10 years or 20 years, that the dads that don't have any energy. And we, like, just recently, a woman wrote in and said, I have a husband. This was after the first night. I have a husband for the first time in 3 years. And we asked what? She says, he's just been basically comatose, waking up with brain fog. And I've taken care of the kids. I had to take care of him. I had to kind of take care of everything. And she's like, it's a completely different world now. So the impact that this is having, this moved for us from a business case, a business problem that we could solve that looked interesting, to a mission. and something that we believe is a generational impact. And that's really what drives our organization every day. And then through that, every decision we make is, really 1A and 1B. Is it clinically sound, and is it patient centric? And if it meets those two criteria, then we drive it, through the organization. Say, is this financially wise? Sort of all the other pieces. But I think the patient stories is really the biggest surprise.
Gentlemen, so, this is very interesting what you're saying, that mission and trying to get that over. But as the technology with oral appliances has been increasing over the past several years, how are you different from what's out there? Because somebody will say, why would I want to go online versus go to the dentist down the street and get one of those machines or one of those appliances, or even the boil and bite that you see online or on TV?
Yeah, I'll take a swing, and then Andrew, if you want to add to that. So the ease of access that we provide is unique. This is fully remote at home for our D2C channel. And I'm sure we'll talk about it. This has expanded well beyond the D2C business for us. But the ease and then access that we create, and then by having the insurance contracts, enabling someone to utilize their current insurance. All of our cases are overseen by a physician and a dentist. Every single case, dentists have the ability to either approve or disapprove. Say, nope, this person cannot, they do not qualify. That happens every single day. Or you need to have something fixed, adjusted, cleaned, and then come back and show us you've done that, and then we'll move forward. So I think that's a unique difference. All of our devices are custom made because we use an impression kit. We send it out. We have them come back. It's designed by a team with, on average, I think 10 years experience designing and working with, digital design of devices, oral appliances, all the way from aligners to actual oral appliances. So and you start putting all these pieces together, and I think it creates a separation in what we're doing from a lot of the others out there.
So
Yeah,
one
I'll
of the
quickly
things
add, Robert.
oh, sorry, Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say there's also the whole provider relationship and element to this. And I think something we do really well is oral appliances, and that's it. That's all we do. And I think, the amount of trust we bring to a relationship and a partnership, there's no stepping on other people's toes. There's no fighting over whose patient this is. It's their patient. It's the provider's patient, and we're there for snapshot in time to get the patient through the oral appliance, process and treatment, and then get them right back to where they came. And as we know, we are not curing or treating, we are managing symptoms. And so we're not the beginning of the journey, and we're not the end of the journey for the patient. And so getting them back to the provider is essential to what we bring to the partnership.
So I was just going to mention that I love the idea of the access to care that Daybreak is able to bring to the table for a patient. We deal in my company that I work for, we deal with a number of patients who just aren't able to tolerate CPAP for whatever reason. And I use the term treatment fatigue. I feel like these patients have been through, going to a sleep lab. They've tried CPAP. They've worked with a respiratory therapist. They've worked with a sleep coach to get through, and still, for whatever reason, can't necessarily, tolerate or use the CPAP device. So, to me, this is a pathway that allows a patient to get to an oral appliance without necessarily having to start from scratch, back in a dentist chair. So appreciate what you guys are doing, at least to bring this to more patients. And ultimately, I've used this term for some of the Inspire ads that all ships rise with all of the direct to consumer campaigns that educate about sleep apnea. So even if a patient sees your ad and learns a little bit about sleep apnea, but becomes interested in the process, they may still end up on a CPAP device at some point, but because ultimately not every patient clicks on the ads that you guys do from a social media perspective. So I appreciate the model, and I think it's something that we need.
Andrew, just thinking about, again, your customer base, when you think of physicians that you've reached out to and your team what have they seen that is a value of Daybreak versus maybe other pathways they've chosen before?
Yeah, it's a great question. I sometimes, and Wesley will say this too. We need to repeat what it is we offer a couple times because it's just no one's quite done it. And so the simplicity of it is almost hard to get the first time around. And look, these physicians are busy. They have a lot going on, and I think the best way I've been able to describe it is that we're the first oral appliance therapy DME company, right? In terms of mimicking that process, the referral model, unlike CPAP, it's a lot easier to bill for this device within your office. So we bring a whole suite of models and offerings where we can take all of it or we can take some of it. And I think physicians really, appreciate that level of support and really trust our care for the patient throughout that journey. Patience and compliance, it's hard, as you guys well know. And so it's a lot of work and we invest a lot of time and effort into the customer support teams, for these patients going through the process.
Fisher & Paykel Solo is the world's first auto-fit CPAP mask. It simplifies setup with its revolutionary auto-lock technology. Simply stretch to fit, touch to adjust. Go to fphcare.com/solo. SleepTech looking for new opportunities? Well, MedBridge Healthcare is one of the largest employers of sleep technologists, and they are growing. If you are a sleep technologist interested in a new position, potential paid relocation, or looking for a career advancement, consider a career with MedBridge Healthcare. Now back to the show. You spoke of a lot of the stories, these positive patient stories, and that's really awesome to hear the testimonials. And what would you say to those people that are worried that, hey, it might deform my mouth when I'm sleeping or my teeth?
So that's where the clinical oversight comes in. That's why we have dentists involved in the process. They have access to our team. They have access to dental support on our team. If there ever is an issue, because there are times when oral appliances, regardless of who administers the oral appliance, that teeth shift, that can happen. I think a distinct difference with our approach, which we actually have a study that's being worked on as we speak, to give us insight on this, is we are much more conservative in our approach to titration, where a standard in practice is max protrusion of a lower jaw, cut that by 50%, which is typically 4 to 6 millimeters. And then that's the starting point. We typically start at about 1 millimeter. And so what we find, interestingly, is 65-ish, 70% of our people are actually fully titrated, meaning they've met the criteria of their AHI reductions, and their symptomatic subjective component is also in relief, which was a surprise to us. We didn't expect that. Not familiar with anybody else that's doing anything similar to this. So we actually have a study that's being worked on currently to provide some additional insight there. So we believe, at least, that that's also helping to reduce any of the potential issues that associate sometimes with oral appliances.
So one question for you guys, and whoever wants to take this, but from a collaboration standpoint, like who's a great partner for Daybreak to be able to collaborate with to bring an oral appliance solution? I know it would be easy in your ads, I think, to just do you hate your CPAP and then move to the next step to get an oral appliance. But you guys start with undiagnosed OSA. At least that's what I've seen in most of your campaigns. So that feels a lot more collaborative than the approach of do you hate your CPAP?
Yeah, fair. So our core business was built around D2C. And I think, roughly 75% of the marketing efforts generate untested, undiagnosed, ultimately sleep apnea sufferers. 25-30% that come in from those same ads end up being what we call pre-diagnosed. And there's a variety of different, pre-diagnosed sort of categories in there, but they all fall under that. But I think that we look at this, Robert, and I'm glad you asked this question, as completely collaborative. We have moved so far beyond a D2C company at this point that, like, I'm looking at my board over here in my office, and we're partnering with HST providers. We're talking to GLPs, we're talking to DMEs, e-commerce, telehealth, We have several GPOs that we've partnered with recently, as well as corporate and self-insured entities. So our goal is to provide a platform across the board for anybody that treats sleep apnea to make oral appliance therapy an option, right? As I said earlier, not to displace anybody, we want to make it an option. So we enable, physicians to be able to treat out of their office where they weren't able to treat out of their office. A DME provider that focuses on CPAPs, we would enable that DME provider to now have oral appliance as an option. Let's say that, 50% on average fail in the first year. Some studies would say, well, we could now ping those particular, individuals through that DME. So now they have another option to provide to these patients. So everybody wins. DME has another option. Daybreak has, another channel. Patient wins because they weren't able to tolerate a CPAP. Now they've got an option that hopefully will work for them. And so we're just beginning to explore all the opportunities out there. I mean, my board isn't by no means exhaustive. That was just part of it. And this is where, I know Andrew's passionate. This is where he spends all of his time, is thinking about, this part of our organization. So I'm sure that he has, additional insight here.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's how we think about how to uncover that 90%. If you have 10% actively treated, how do we go after that 90? And so that's really just what we're bringing to the table. And if the answer is not oral appliance, great. I think really what we do is problem solution fit. And there's plenty in the space to go after. It is that big of a problem to tackle that we don't need to get everyone. And again, it's really, is there a problem solution fit between these businesses, and can we help patients who otherwise are kind of left in the corner? And sometimes that can be an uncomfortable conversation, especially with a doctor who has certain clinical preferences or ideology, to say, that's great, but what if it doesn't work? Where do your patients go then? And so I think with our offering, we've seen it as a way to bring scale and access to patients. When I think about MSO groups that are expanding throughout multiple states and have dozens of locations, very difficult to scale an in-office model. And also the ones that have scaled typically don't have a dentist on staff, right? And so we bring that dental oversight as well. Or it's for a business like a CPAP DME who it has thousands of patients a month, and not all patients are compliant and treated at the end of that process. And so how can we drive patients who either refuse CPAP or who are intolerant, and non-adherent, and can we give them another option, both for the patient and the provider, that's accessible, and easy, easy to work with and to get.
I mean, essentially,
Andrew,
we're offering another tool. Sorry, we're essentially offering another tool for the care provider, whether it's a DME, it's a physician, right, et cetera. It's e-commerce company, telehealth company, it doesn't matter. Like we're adding another tool into the chest or box for that person to pull out and offer to the patient where appropriate. We're agnostic. We want to be there as an option.
That's awesome. When you think about, one of the things that's come up a couple of times is that physician oversight that you have, or that dental oversight. For our listeners who might be saying, "Oh, these guys just want to put everybody on their appliance." What have those moments been, those clinical moments been, where you've had to push back and say, you need to take a traditional route, or you need to talk to your physician? What have those moments look like for our listeners so that they understand your approach to patient care?
So all of our prescriptions that come through, where appropriate, have both a CPAP and an oral appliance as an option. And then depending on where that person ends up, they would be moved one direction or the other. We don't currently provide CPAP support, so we have partners that do, and so we refer out to partners that do. And as I mentioned earlier, we also refer out to dentists in the event that there's something that, happens, the person needs someone locally to help them. We will refer them to a local dentist, local physician, et cetera, et cetera. Our goal isn't to put, a single oral appliance in everybody's mouth. Our goal is to help people get treated for sleep apnea that otherwise are suffering at home in every day of their life. And so we are working every day tirelessly to create pathways for that to occur. Again, either through our original direct-to-consumer channel or all the other channels that we've mentioned today, and many that we haven't. Like one of our highest, one of our, I'd say our biggest passions, we just barely started to scratch the surface on this one, is a mental health channel, right? I think it's largely overlooked. We have a psychologist, a PhD on staff, who spent a lot of time treating people that had issues and mental issues over a decade. And she said one of the biggest challenges for her and her colleagues, a psychologist and a psychiatrist, was that they don't have a means to treat people that they know have sleep apnea, sleep problems, largely sleep apnea. And because of their lack of sleep, that lack of recovery, lack of hormonal balance, et cetera, they struggle for mental health recovery. It's a massive issue that, people aren't really talking about, and at least not as much as we should be talking about it. So we went to one conference and didn't have a great booth, just sort of showed up and had a small booth in the corner just to kind of test the waters. We were by far the most popular booth. I mean, everybody was lining up to talk to us because, like, please, can we refer over to you? How can we refer to you? We want our patients to get treated. We know they need this. Thank you for putting this together. Huge surprise. So that's another example of where we're leaning in.
That's absolutely amazing to hear, especially on the mental health side. You don't hear that at all when it comes to oral appliance. I mean, we do hear, cognitive behavioral therapy for other things, but on the oral appliance side, that's absolutely amazing. But we are running out of time, and so the time has come for me to ask you, is there anything else you want to add before we close?
No, it's been a great discussion. We sort of jokingly said in the beginning, 20 minutes versus 3 hours. I mean, this is something we're passionate about. We could spend, 3 hours talking about this easily. Hopefully we got our message across, right? Daybreak is here to help, people get treated with sleep apnea. Our focus is doing it clinically sound, paramount, and an exceptional customer experience. So, thedaybreak.com is our website, www.thedaybreak.com. If you want to reach out, all the information is there.
Where can they find information about you guys, Wesley and Andrew?
Feel free to email me. I can say Wesley@thedaybreak.com. And Andrew is same, Andrew@thedaybreak.com. We'd be happy to field any emails or any questions that anyone would have.
And
Yeah,
I'm
and
sure
we're both
we can find you on LinkedIn as well.
we're
Yes,
on LinkedIn as well, and
of course.
I do want to say a quick shout out to the three of you. I've learned a lot. I'm new to healthcare. Been on the dental side, but I've learned a lot from the three of you, and specifically, Robert and Emerson, for your mentorship over the last 9 months. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much for the kind words. That's very nice of you to say that. And Robert, as always, the greatest.
Well, Emerson too.
We love
Let's not
Emerson
forget
as
Emerson.
well.
Hey, we do appreciate you guys joining us today. This has been great, learning more about Daybreak. I was going to save it for our post cows, but I'll go ahead and talk about it. I'm a Daybreak patient, so I have been through the process, and I will talk about that a little bit in the post cows, what my experience was like. So Andrew and Wesley, you don't get to hear that part of our discussion, but I can say without question, I would have no issue with any one of my family members becoming a Daybreak patient.
Hey,
Well,
there's a
thank you.
testimonial right there, and
Incredible.
that's cool to hear. And Andrew and Wesley, you can definitely hear it once the show is published. So,
Great.
Yeah, we'll go listen. Thanks, guys.
all right. Well,
Thank you.
thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate you joining us. And folks out there, thank you so much for joining us as well. I hope you got as much out of it as we have. And a huge shout out to our sponsors. Thank you so much to each and every one of them. And just remember, like, subscribe, and most importantly, share. So until next time, lights on. Be sure to check out our clinical sponsor,
Sleep Review Magazine. More details in show notes.
All right, we had a couple of smart guys on the show, and so you know what that means. It's time for post cals. So, what are your thoughts, gentlemen?
Well, Jerry, I think that what Daybreak did has done is like a lot of our guests on this show. They see a need in the market, they build a solution for it, from their experience, and then come with something that is extraordinary and has created such inertia for them, as they continue to grow and become a force in the space. The idea that they could do this remotely just seems so foreign, and they've built a system that does that, and it's quite exceptional. Great to hear their story. There's a lot of passion on the team, and it was that really came through in the conversation today.
I loved it. I love the conversation with those guys. They're the kind of guys that you want to, you know that they're a rocket ship, and you want to tie yourself to the rocket ship because you know that it's going to, be an incredible ride. And I think that now that even hearing them talk about the fact that they're, potentially going to branch out into some other types of, you know, um, the disorders that they could potentially, become a part of, and just even tiptoeing into that space, it sounded like they had some success already. So excited to see what happens there. But I did mention it on the show, and so I wanted to talk about it a little bit. That I'm a Daybreak patient. I don't. If anyone has listened to the program, I think I'm the poster child for GLP-1 slash, what's next, and have been on a GLP-1 for over a year. I lost enough weight that I knew I was really, really struggling to continue to wear my CPAP device. So I sought out oral appliance therapy as a potential option for me as a patient myself, and I was able to start wearing an oral appliance. I've been on an oral appliance now for a year, I would say, and so I was a very compliant CPAP user. I'm a very compliant. And really don't have any issues or challenges wearing my oral appliance. But I wanted to see what it's like to become a Daybreak patient, and see if the service lined up with what my expectation was. And I can tell you wholeheartedly that it is a great experience as a patient. There's a lot of communication. There's really no questions. I think where you're sort of wondering, "So what's next for me as a patient?" And then ultimately the quality of the product, not just the oral appliance itself, but you also get some, I think it's depending on the package or whatever that you get, but there's some products and services that they offer that come in the kit. And it gives you the ability to, now you've got an ultrasonic cleaner to clean your oral appliance. You've got the cleaning solution. And it all comes in this, really well packaged, high quality kit. So I'm a fan myself of the process and of the product.
Yeah, I'll have to pile on there. I too went through the process. Unfortunately, my GLP-1 hasn't quite had the impact yet that yours has had, so I'm still on my CPAP. But I think what was interesting going through their process is just what you said. The presentation, the process of walking through the fitting is really fascinating because you sort of imagine, gosh, being a patient, what are they going to walk into? What are they going to experience? And it's really a very handheld experience for the patient. I was very impressed with all those steps. The presentation of just the box itself was impressive. I know that sounds silly, but first impressions matter. And so that first impression with the patient all the way to the end, including the tools to be monitored ongoing, were a surprise. So yeah, big shout out to their team, of their development team, their marketing team, for putting something together like that. And hopefully I'll get to a place where I won't need my CPAP and can go full oral appliance, but still need that positive airway pressure for now. So
First,
Look at
first
Jerry sitting over
impressions.
there all CPAP-less and
Well,
sleeping
yeah.
normal with the normal AHI at night. By
yeah,
the
yeah,
way, my process actually started with a home sleep test, and because it had been, my previous diagnosis had occurred before I lost weight, and happy to report I almost didn't qualify for an oral appliance, except that I wanted to make sure I don't snore anymore. But my AHI was 0.6.
Oh wow.
Wow, that's
Okay.
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. No, what I was gonna say is, yeah, I'm not on GLP-1s and I'm not on the oral appliance either. But what I thought was really interesting, by the way, great pun. Emerson. First impressions. Okay, but but
Nice.
but what I thought for me from a clinical standpoint, I really appreciated the mix, the hybrid of virtual with local, meaning you could get this done virtually, but if you needed somebody right away locally to look at your teeth or whatever, they work with local dentists to in order to get that portion of it. I thought that was a very brilliant way to approach this therapy and approach this particular style of therapy where everything is done virtually in the convenience of the patient's home. But if needed, they had a place to go. That way, you're
Well,
not working with somebody that has no idea what they're doing.
I think, when the great sleep dental practices I've met, understand that there are going to be some patients that an oral appliance is not the right solution, and CPAP is the correct pathway. And I think that was great to hear that they align with that philosophy of the right therapy for the right patient. And that matters because, as we continue to see everything develop in sleep, and the medications become more online, these sort of things are going to matter more and more. That we do assess the patient based on what they actually need to succeed in their journey, in battling OSA. And it is no longer one solution for everyone. It's multiple options, and that's the beauty of our industry. It's evolving that fast with so many different things that can help somebody.
Well,
Well, and
gents, I think
do you
go
remember
ahead,
during
Robert.
the session, I said something about that I appreciated that they started with, the undiagnosed patient with their direct to consumer ads, because I remember there was a sleep dentist, in a nearby town who literally had a website, I hate my CPAP.com.
Wow,
So they have a
wow,
completely different approach that's definitely more collaborative, and we appreciate that for sure.
definitely. Well, gentlemen, I think it's time to close, and I think it was a great discussion today, and so let's call it. Folks out there, thank you all so much. Until next time, cheers.